This episode of Jonjo Lyons Reviews is sponsored by Wood by Stoop.
What's that like to live deliciously? Chaos reigns.
Please don't scream.
Nah, Sid, don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos more creative.
What's happening? My name is Jonjo Lyons, and today I'm here to present to you my review for The Burning Moon. Written and directed by Olaf Ittenbach, The Burning Moon stars all of these. A young drug addict reads his little sister two macabre bedtime stories. One about a serial killer on a blind date, and the other about a psychotic priest terrorizing his village. Hey you lot, just about recovered from last time? Ready to get your hands dirty once again by diving headfirst into another ultra-violent, low-budget splatterfest by the legend Olaf Ittenbach? Excellent. After the fantastic response the Premutos video got, I decided to cover another one of Olaf's earlier movies. This was going to be his first movie, Black Past, but I couldn't find a copy for that. So here's The Burning Moon. The Burning Moon is an anthology featuring two separate stories with a wraparound starring the director himself in the lead, and when I found out that was the case, I got super excited. I love short films, so getting to see three directed by Olaf Ittenbach sounds like the best way to relax after eating a bowl full of babies' faces for lunch. But before we get into all of that, I just want to remind you, you can see this video completely uncut and early at patreon.com/Jonjo Lyons for as little as $2 a month. That's it. Want to see the uncut videos, gain access to the Discord, or see all the full reviews that can't be on YouTube anymore because of a crybaby? Go there now. And as a relatively new feature for the Patreon version of these videos, they're not only going to be uncut, but also extended. With the Patreon videos, you get longer clips, more jokes, and an all-round nastier experience. And if that doesn't sound like fun to you, you might be in the wrong place. Please don't leave! But even more importantly than that, I'm currently crowdfunding my directorial debut short film, Better Anything. Now let's start by saying I am supremely happy to announce that we have already hit our minimum target for the budget at 104%. That means Better Anything is definitely going to happen. That being said, we still have a few days left on the crowdfund, and any extra money will go into the film, making it as good as possible. For instance, I'm not going to go into specifics, but I was quoted a number the other day, and when I heard it, it made me feel like I was going to vomit. If you've got any spare change, £5, a tenner, a quid, anything, please go over to the crowdfunding campaign links in the top comment and description. Every penny is going to help us make the movie that I want to deeply, deeply upset you. We've also got all of the sick perks over there that you don't want to miss out on. Check it out now. And once again, thank you so much to everybody that's already donated. I'm going to make you proud. And possibly sick. But anyway, I'm in the mood to be once again disgusted by Mr. Ittenbach, so let's not waste any more time. Get ready to have every inch of your soul incinerated by the flames of that thing up there. This is The Burning Moon. The movie begins with opening credits that feel somewhat inspired by The Terminator, then cut to this fella Peter being dropped off to a job interview by his pal. In the interview, Peter clearly doesn't give a f***, asking for a beer when offered a coffee and ogling this Fraulein when she brings the boss's beverage.
Bitte sehr.
Maggie, denken Sie bitte an das Telefonat.
Mhm.
And while she is admittedly very attractive, I can't take my eyes off of Peter's earring. What the f*** is going on there? It looks like a hubcap. Unsurprisingly, Peter isn't offered the position, so tells the boss to f*** off as he leaves. Outside, he meets his mate and they say they need to go clean up, and we cut to a reveal that they're part of the least intimidating street gang you've ever seen.
Die scheint es auch in die Hose, die Wichser.
They look like a f***ing boy band. Backstreet Boys, N-Twink, New Kids on the A rival gang then appears out of a puff of smoke, and the bosses step to each other when it all kicks off. Victorious Peter's gang run off as we cut to him arriving home. Inside, he tries to sort himself out when his mother comments on the state of him and slaps him up before catching one back. Cut to Peter's little sister chilling in her room when the mother enters and tells her she's going out with dad and she needs to go to bed. She says Peter's gonna watch after the little girl and she's gonna tell him not to bring round any of his friends. Elsewhere, Peter isn't exactly happy about this, arguing he has better things to do. His mother pleads with him to listen to his father, but Peter pushes her away, then gets his ass kicked by daddy.
So, Freundchen, ich glaube, du wirst in Zukunft ein bisschen zusammenreißen müssen. Und wenn wir nach Hause kommen und du bist nicht da, dann wirst du was erleben.
Du tust
Und
ihm
Steve
noch
wirst du nie wiedersehen, diesen Haschbruder.
The parents leave and Peter sulks in his room for a bit, angrily playing with a slinky, which is very funny. Also, I've just noticed that Peter has a kind of a David from the Lost Boys vibe going on, and I dig it. Cut to a flashback of Peter as a child playing what I assume is some sort of traditional German game called Kleinen Kugel in einem Glas or some shit. The other boy's father drags his son away, which makes Peter sad as we cut to present day as he gets out some drugs. I see. Rejected from day one. Me and you both, mate. Now my incessant addiction issues and antisocial behaviour seems justified. Thanks, Olaf! In the bathroom, his sister brushes her teeth and heads to bed as music from a 90s Jerry Bruckheimer movie plays. Seriously, is it just me, or does this sound like something off the score for 1996's The Rock? Was this done on purpose? If so, I love it, but it doesn't quite match the scene. We then see Peter inject himself full of which seems to chill him right the f*** out. He stares up at the moon when it suddenly bursts into flames and then heads back inside to grab this book. Cut to these creepy dolls and his sister attempting to sleep.
Sicher einschlafen, stimmt's?
Well, no, not anymore, I can't. Do you want to take a step back, fella? Peter says he's going to read her a story to put her to sleep, the first one being called Julia's Love. Cut to a title card as we find ourselves at St. Peterson Mental Clinic. Inside, these two discuss a patient named Parker who's had to be put in solitary after hurting his knee. Apparently, he's a murderer who watched his family get murdered by his grandpa when he was 10 and that kind of f***ed him up.
Später hat dann das Morden zu seinem Hobby gemacht. Hat 21 Menschen getötet. Ich hatte eine Gesprächstherapie mit ihm begonnen.
I suppose kinda isn't really the right word there. Apparently he was making great progress until yesterday, and even though it looks like a hopeless case, the doctor thinks it's a reactive psychosis and will continue the therapy. Her colleague isn't a fan of this choice, but she says he's far too intelligent not to continue. She says he's fascinating, but again her colleague says it's hopeless and calls him a monster. She then says she's taking him off his sedatives when they turn a corner and discover this fella who seems to have had a bit of a fall. The colleague tells her to sound the alarm, so she takes off running, bumping into her patient. I suppose taking him off his sedatives was a bad idea there. Well, what do I know? I'm not a doctor. I'm barely human. The killer then approaches the doctor's colleague as we cut to this woman entering her home. She says hello to her cute little meower when she finds a note from her mum saying dinner's in the oven. She says out loud she's been invited to dinner when the phone rings, the caller being some bloke who wants to bang Julia, but she ain't interested.
Kannst du nicht einfach alles vergessen? Ich will nicht.
She tells him to forget it and hangs up before heading upstairs and giving the audience a cheeky bit of side boob. Cut to this businessman getting out of his car. Good lord! Should have looked both ways, mate. Or even made the smallest attempt at getting out of the way. The killer then steps out of his now f***ed up car and gets in a new one before driving off. Cut to Julia arriving at this bar and meeting with her friends. She tells them about her date tonight and says his name is Brian Connor, which might be the least sexy name of all time. They then chat about Brian with Julia saying she's already quite infatuated. The friends tell her to let them know how it goes and Julia leaves, meaning she literally just popped in to tell her mate she's gonna get laid. We then cut to the date where everything seems to be going well.
Whitney hat sich dann umgedreht und wollte weggehen. Und dann ist sie auch noch auf der blöden Currywurst ausgerutscht. Wir haben uns halb tot gelacht.
Brian tells Julia she's beautiful and that he has feelings for her, and in response she talks about 2 people being killed in town. Julia says she hopes nothing happens to her family, clarifying she means her parents and sibling when Brian gets the wrong idea. They then go back to flirting before asking for the check. Cut to the couple leaving. Brian tries to get his end away, but Julia suggests they take it slow and says she'll call him tomorrow. He says he'll call her, then Julia asks about his work, with Brian saying he's training to be a doctor. They then get in the car and have a little kiss.
Was ist los?
Ach, nichts. Ich...
Revealing Brian to be the killer from the hospital. Bad news for Julia. That being said, the clinically insane do good, so there's pros and cons. Julia asks if he's okay and Brian says he's fine, just needs to go and grab some cigarettes, getting out of the car and heading off. In the car, Julia sticks on the radio and hears a report about the police hunting the escaped maniac, the one she just kissed. The reporter describes his looks and says he's been spotted in the very same car Julia is sitting in, which she realizes when she checks the license plate. She then takes off running, flagging down another car and jumping inside as Brian, or Parker, returns with his smokes. He doesn't react well to seeing Julia as off and gets in the car, discovering in her haste she left her purse, which unfortunately contains a note with her address on. Whoops! And I know it's just to move the plot forward to get the killer to the house, but why does she have a note with her address on in her wallet? It's not like it's on an ID like a driver's license. Does she need it to remember where she lives? A lady of the night then offers Parker a quickie.
Und wie magst du es?
Wirklich nicht schnell.
Wordplay. Cut to Parker pulling up at some traffic lights and somehow chopping off the woman's head with an axe in the car. Anyway, the driver behind him gets pissed waiting and beeps, so Parker throws the head at him and drives off. Cut to Julia being dropped off at home, not the police station where she's greeted by her mother. She doesn't say anything about what just happened, instead heading upstairs and watching a conveniently timed news report about Parker's escape and all the fun he's been having since.
Seither wurden 3 Fahrzeuge als vermisst und weitere 3 Personen brutal ermordet aufgefunden. Wer hat Cliff Parker gesehen oder eines der gestohlenen Fahrzeuge?
Julia wonders what to do. Call the police! As we cut downstairs to see Mum noodling about in the kitchen. On the TV plays Black Past, Olaf Ittenbach's first movie, as the dad calls it crap. Back in the kitchen, Mum continues to clean up when she's attacked by Parker. Oh no, not blood in the butter. Why does that gross me out so much? In the bathroom, Julia chats with her sister, seemingly way too chill for having just been on a date with a psychopath. She says she'll never find Mr. Right as her sister reassures her, then downstairs we see Dad catch the business end of Parker's machete. Cut to Julia finally realizing she left her wallet and what that means, as in the bathroom her sister gets her back split open and brutally murdered all the way to death. Parker tells the sister he loves her before stabbing her one last time, as we cut back to Julia.
Ich muss es sagen.
Finally! Jesus Christ, Julia! She heads downstairs to tell her dad, but finds him in a bit of a state, also discovering the phone isn't working and the doors are locked. That's when Parker enters and throws Julia's mother's head at her. Ha! Julia takes off running and is able to lock herself in the bathroom, where she finds her sister, who Parker managed to set on fire somehow. Parker then reminds Julia that the bathroom door is made of glass and says he's gonna have to come in there and chop her head off. He then talks about playing with the sister for a bit when Gary, the sister's boyfriend, pulls up outside. Julia calls out to him, then realizes Parker has vanished, so tells him not to come inside. She smashes the window, but Gary just calls her hysterical and pays the price. Julia then grabs some scissors and runs directly into Parker. They have a little scuffle, ending with Julia stabbing the killer and running downstairs. Unfortunately, this escape fails when she trips and knocks herself out like a dickhead. We then cut to whatever the fuck is going on here when she's woken up by Parker, who hilariously wants to start over. Julia says she knows where he's from and how everyone is looking for him, but Parker says he doesn't care about what they're saying on TV and how he just wants a normal life like everyone else, to be accepted. Which would be fine if you hadn't just murdered her entire family. He explains what happened to his mum when Julia asks what he wants from her, and he says to get married and have kids. We then see his fantasy of this.
Ich will in dich eindringen. Ich möchte, dass du meine ganze Liebe in dir aufgibst.
He means cum. He tells her he loves her as this papa frolics, and it all seems lovely until Julia reminds him he just killed her whole family. Parker says he freed them, that they didn't love each other and would have come between them, which Julia doesn't really accept all that well.
Du bringst Menschen und willst dafür geliebt werden. Du bist krank, scheiß krank!
Parker then says he needs to teach her a lesson and makes her eat an eyeball, which we see in an amazing shot from the inside of Julia's mouth.
Du machst meine Träume kaputt, du taktloser Bauerntrampel. Du hast einfach kein Gefühl für Romantik. Schluck es!
So much fun. It's that extra level of creativity that makes Olaf Ittenbach one of my favourite filmmakers. In response to this, Julia cracks Parker over the head with a bottle and stabs him to get away. He gives chase, punching Julia through a window, then gets on top ready to kill her.
Hey, Arschloch.
Jesus Christ, what kind of bullets are in that gun? His head exploded. Let's see it again. Awesome. The cop calmly explains where he's been this whole time as Julia lies there covered in Parker's brain, which is very funny, before finally helping her up. We then cut to sometime later as Julia has popped in an ambulance. The cop explains to his colleague everything that's happened as the paramedics see to Julia, who is now finally safe.
Alles in Ordnung?
Ist mit Ihnen jetzt alles in Ordnung?
Cut to Peter and his little sister. Oh yeah, in all this excitement, I forgot that this was a story Peter was telling to his sister to help her sleep. What the f*** is wrong with you, man? Sister says she doesn't want to hear Peter's stupid stories, but he says he's here because of her, so she has to do what he says.
Genau wie ich die Scheiße machen muss, die du willst!
He then introduces the second story, the purity, and we cut to these two leaving this house and having a chat about a recipe before saying goodbye. Oh, and just for context, we're currently in Bavaria 1957. It doesn't factor into the plot in any meaningful way or have any relevance, but they tell us it, so now I'm telling you. We follow the woman on her bike as she rides through the fog when we see this pair of legs and the music gets intense. This mystery man then jumps out, knocks the woman off her bike, sticks his whole ass directly in our faces and the woman while calling her the purity. The perfect purity. He then gets up, pulls out a gun and shoots her in the face.
Nein! Nein!
Cut to the man revealed to be a priest as he leads the service for the poor murdered girl. At the end of the speech, everyone stands to say the Lord's Prayer. Everyone then leaves when we see this fella, Justice, get threatened by whoever the this is. And you might recognize this actor from Premutos, where he played Hugo. I hope he gets a better ending this time around. Poor Cut to Justice and the priest walking as Justice moans about always being blamed for everything. He says he doesn't have anyone, that no one will help him and that he worries they're gonna do something to him. The priest says if anyone hurts him, they'll go to hell when this bloke drives past and Justice thanks him for his advice, saying he'll be over for tea later. What? All he said was be like Jesus and you'll be fine. Hardly amazing advice. We then cut straight to that tea sesh as the men sit down and talk about death, with Justice asking why people die and why Elvira, the girl from earlier, had to go. The priest says they are with God now and Justice admits he thinks he will be soon as well. He says both the other villagers and the elders are looking for the culprit of these murders and they blame him. The priest then explains what would happen to them in hell.
Sie werden gequält, bei lebendigem Leibe zerrissen und zerstückelt. Und sie dürfen nie mehr sterben, ja!
With that strange form of reassurance over with, Justice gets up to go back to the farm and the pair say their goodbyes. Cut to nighttime as we spend a million years panning around this room. In the bed, this man sleeps with his wife when they're woken up by a dog barking outside. She tells him to go check it out, so he sparks up a lantern and goes to investigate. Unfortunately for us, he finds nothing, so heads back to the living room and has a little sip on his drink. That's when the priest appears, saying he needs the man's wife and shooting him to death.
Das Sterben ist ein Reinigungsprozess. Es reinigt die Seele.
Actually, he shoots him so many times that at one point he has to stop and reload, which is pretty funny. Come on, man, go to sleep, will ya? Talk about a bullet sponge.
Du bist gereinigt.
The priest then attacks the wife and she wakes up chained to a wall. We see the priest engaging in some sort of ritual which almost certainly will not end well for the woman. The priest then picks up a sword and pulls it across her throat, opening her up. Below her, a glass fills with her blood, which the priest takes and tries to drink, spilling most of it down his chops like a mucky pup. He then rubs his nipples and we cut to morning. Here we find Justice working on the farm chopping wood when he's jumped by the villagers.
Bring die um!
They blame him for the murders and kick out of him when he's saved by the priest.
Kommt, lasst uns gehen. Kommt.
Ich will euch am Sonntag alle in der Kirche sehen.
Cut to them back at the house as the priest tends to Justice's wounds. He says Frank will get his, then turns the conversation to the farm work Justice has to get done. All better now, the scene ends and we cut to nighttime as the priest dreams of his childhood. His dad says he wants him to be a priest, and then we cut to the boy praying in front of a crucifix when this happens. This mysterious woman hands the boy a book when he asks her where she came from. The priest wakes up from this nightmare and drags himself out of bed to turn off the kettle. What? He just had that running while he was sleeping. It's not very safe. The priest then sits at his desk and pulls the hell book out to do a bit of cheeky midnight revision.
So werden all die im Namen dieses selbsternannten Falschgottes dienlich waren, durch ihr einziges Selbstopfer erlöst und in mein Reich aufgenommen. Ralf komme und erlöse deine Seele.
Wait, so the book actually had his name in it? Was it written specifically for him? Who by? Where from? What the f is going on? He tells his father he will come for him, lol, then starts loading up his gun. He then sits on the sofa, pulls the hammer back, places the barrel in his mouth and... Well, would you look at that? The village is now safe. So why do we still have 20 minutes of story left? Cut to the pub as the patrons all sit there looking like someone in their cereal. We then see this smoke show descend the stairs and listening to the patrons as they plan to kill Justice. This fella pays this blonde guy, the Frank that Justice mentioned was gonna hurt him, a bunch of money, and he leaves off on his mission. Cut to Justice working when the woman arrives to warn him about the coming threat. He refuses to leave as he's got work to do on the farm, so the woman tells him not to go into the village. She then off, leaving him to get on with his work. Unfortunately, his peaceful solitude doesn't last long when Blondie appears and cracks him over the head with a hammer.
Jetzt geht's dir schlecht.
He then hits him in the face and Justice tries to get away but is not successful, instead being beaten to death. Nah, no justice for Justice, it seems. He's got a head like a squashed tomato now. His assailant then just sort of stumbles off, leaving me to wonder where the police are in all of this. Frank then returns with a pitchfork, stabs Justice a couple times to be sure, drags his body away, cleans himself up and goes home, all in a day's work. This guy then enters asking Frank if he did it and he says yes. Mustache asks where the body is and Frank says he just left it, with the other man finally mentioning the police. Frank isn't worried however, as he says everyone was in on it so they can't say shit. He tells him to off and off the man as we cut to night and inside Frank's as he has a little smoke. He lays down to sleep when we cut to Justice's final resting place, the pitchfork still stuck in his We then hear the voice of the priest who says Frank will be burning in hell and commands Justice to awaken. Ow, 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 ow. Cut to Frank sleeping like an angel, then Justice on the hunt. He paints 666 on the wall as inside a crucifix bursts into flames. Frank then wakes up and begins to scream in pain, holding onto his stomach. He sees this blue tunnel and falls as he's transported to the hell dimension. Still, better than anywhere in South London. We see all manner of hellish images as blood, gore, guts and gratuity are displayed in full for all of us to enjoy, if you're on the Patreon. Lost souls wandering back and forth through the muck as screaming and crying echo eternally. And yeah, it's just a lot of this for a bit. This guy then goes on a shooting spree, confirming they do indeed have guns in hell. The Texan mother-in-law will be pleased. He finally blows his own head off and we marvel at the many bodies strewn throughout this gaff. Oh, and there's this skelly who I thought was super cute. Bleh. We then return to Frank as he's strapped down, nailed to a table, and welcomed to hell. They rip out one of his eyes, drill his teeth, disembowel him, and then pull him apart from his legs so he splits right the f*** open. Savage! We then flash back to Frank's living room as he seems to be released or just die, I'm not sure. Back with Justice, the priest tells him he has entered the path of immortals and now he will be freed of all suffering. We then see the blue tunnel again and hear his screams before cutting back to Peter and his sister, who is finally able to sleep. Because she's dead. Oh, Peter, you rascal. Peter leaves, dropping his book and heading out back with a knife. He cries, then cuts deeply into his wrist, spraying blood all over himself. He then collapses under the burning moon's light and the film ends on a shot of the sister's picture. The end! Well, yet another home run from Olaf Ittenbach. This guy truly does not give a single f*** and I love it. The Burning Moon is another win for Olaf Ittenbach, who was so impressive in his early career that it actually makes me feel a little bit sick. Both this and the later, more refined Premuto show a fearless potential and wicked sense of humour that continues to impress me with every new movie of his I sit down to watch. I really need to get me a copy of his first film. The stories are simple enough as the audience is presented with a wraparound, a serial killer story and a journey to hell. The wraparound doesn't amount to all that much other than a bizarre opening gang fight and a dead sister. Julia's love has maybe the dumbest final girl this side of Jodie Markin, and the Purity offers us a despicable yet interesting villain who unfortunately isn't around for as long as I might have hoped. Saying that, the unexpected turn of the last story, the priest nomming on his gun and Frank's journey to hell, was not where I thought it was going to go, so that's a positive. In terms of the cast, it's your usual amateur fare with everyone doing the best they can. If I could pick anyone that especially stood out, it would be the killer priest. There's a certain glee he takes in his depraved acts, and that really comes through the actor's performance. Also, the actors featured in Olaf's Hell deserve a massive shout out for being covered in all that goopy stuff. God knows what that room smelt like after a full day of shooting. Onto the gore, and holy sh**, is this one messy. We get the car hit, exploding heads, deep cuts, arterial sprays, and the previously mentioned blood in the butter. Not only is the film covered head to toe in nastiness, but it's how lo-fi some of the effects are that I find so charming. No wonder gore went on to be Olaf's main moneymaker. Production-wise, there's not much to say as everything is pretty much on the same level as it was in Premutos, minus the multiple time jumps. That shot inside the mouth is memorable, and the production design at hell is good, but other than that, it's nothing special. In the end, The Burning Moon is another super fun little movie that I thoroughly enjoyed. It's fascinating to see the origins of a filmmaker who really seems to be having fun making the biggest mess possible. If you like anthologies, silly gore, or indie filmmaking in general, this is a must-watch and an inspiration for those who want to do the same. Grab some friends, some drinks, and get ready for a super fun journey directly to squishy hell. So that was my review for The Burning Moon. What do you lot think? I had a lot of fun with this one, and honestly, I just hope Olaf Ittenbach's movies continue on like this. Just super silly and super violent. That being said, I do remember No Reason being savagely depressing. Oh no. And even if it doesn't, as long as we get more exploding heads, I'll be happy. Speaking of which, if you want to see all manner of up shit in Olaf Ittenbach's version of Hell, completely uncut, extended and early, head over to patreon.com/Jonjo Lyons. There you can find the uncut version of this review plus others with more stuff being added all the time. There we got the uncut reviews, Patreon exclusive reviews / the comic breakdowns in the Discord. And all that can be yours for as little as $2 a month. You can pledge more, I really appreciate it, but instead take that extra money over to the crowdfunding campaign for my short film Better Anything. We just want to make the best movie possible, and to do that, I need money. Me money now. And for fans of the game series Resident Evil, we also have this exciting offer. Right now for purchase, we have these prints of Barry which have been designed by my favourite person, Taylor Stone King, and will be signed by the original Barry himself. That's right, Greg Smith from the opening cinematic. There's only 30 prints, they're $30 each, and half the money will be going to my movie. The other half going to help with shipping. You can message Taylor at tstoneking16@gmail.com or Greg himself through his Facebook. He runs a fan page called The First Barry Burton. Shipping for these prints is expected to start in July. And if you want to get your hands on a super cool doormat like this, head over to Wood by Stu. My friend Taylor's job is to make sure customizations look good on the products, and she also works on new designs. She's also been a really good friend of mine for like 3 years now, which is wild to think about. She's helped me out loads over the years, and I want to return the favor, so go over to the store now and get yourself a wacky doormat. One more time, that's Wood by Stu, and you can find the link for the site in the pinned comment and description. So that's it for another week. Like the video, leave a comment, and click subscribe if you haven't already. My name's Jonjo Lyons, and Peter, did you really need to kill your sister? I guess it's going to be funny when the parents come back and you were like, well, I told you not to let me babysit. Now she's dead, and you have to live with that forever. Good night, everybody.